players not being paid, footballers having to eat microwaved meals, hotels scrapped, transport minimalized, gas and heating bills, we don't need to pay for that, and then redundancy letters, being told you no longer have a job the week before Christmas. On the 13th of January 2024, Reading played Port Vale, but the word play is used very loosely. On the 16th minute mark, fans took to the pitch at the Select Car Leasing Stadium, an incredible name for a stadium. You probably know it as the Vizeh Stadium, named after the great Reading legend John Vizeh, who owned the club between 1990 and 2012. Reading Football Club in the last 2 decades used to be the pride of the area, where being pragmatic and believing in the youth brought success. Against Port Vale, the Reading fans took to the pitch in protest of their current ownership, against a man called Die Young. What a name. The term asset stripping is correctly used in a situation where the current ownership is trying to get every single penny out of the club to bring back on its initial investment. And this is not the first and most definitely will not be the last that you'll be hearing about awful ownership ran in the EFL. Tell me down below your thoughts on Reading. How do you feel about the current EFL system and how they currently act on their fit and proper owners test? If you are new here, then please do subscribe. Smash a like, 3,000 likes, and yeah, Vizeh Designs, my own football print company. We have Reading prints too. If you guys would like to buy some, it's your guys' choice. I know it's probably a bad time right now, but link is down below. And let's get into the video. To add some context, when John Vizeh first took ownership of Reading, they were in the 3rd tier of English football, and they started rising through the league. And he did not just become a sort of likeable chairman within the area, he became a hero. After winning the 1994 Division 2 title, they then became runners-up in the final Division 1 table. This would have granted them into the Premier League. However, this was the exact year that they streamlined it from 22 teams to 20, so Reading missed out. And in 1998 they strived even further, and they moved from their previous home, Elm Park, and they moved into a 24,000 all-seater stadium, of course known the Vizeh Stadium. A few ups and downs, but Reading was always near the top end of always fighting towards being in the Premier League, until it all changed in 2006. Reading won the 2005 All-Six Championship title in the most incredible way imaginable, with a feat so great that no other team has been able to replicate, despite all of the money. Burnley last year came close, Leeds came close, and I'm sure people may think that Leicester could come close until they had another dip in form. 106 points is how they won the title, scoring 99 goals and only losing twice, which in a championship season of 46 games, it is very hard to stay that consistent, yet they did so. And did they go down the first time of asking? No. They came 8th. Reading finished 8th with 55 points in the first year in the Premier League. Of course, second season syndrome is what gets a lot of teams, and that did happen in their second season, being relegated back down to the Championship. And if Reading fans know one thing, it is playoff heartbreak. 08-09 getting knocked out by Burnley in the playoff semi-final. Thanks lads. 2010 making the playoff final but losing 4-2 to Swansea City. And in 11-12 they came back again, winning the title ahead of Southampton. During this year, however, John Vizeh was looking at trying to improve the club and was planning to selling a large part of his stake, making him no longer the majority holder. He sold a 51% stake for 40 million to Thames Sports Investments, a Russian consortium. And back in the Premier League, they sadly went down at the first time of asking. Reading was always known to be a Division 3 type of club. However, when John Vizeh came in, they were flirting towards being much higher than that. They became a staple of not only just being a championship second division club, but always being on the top end, usually not being below 10th in his entire tenure at Reading. Let's go to 2016-17. Manager Jaap Stam battled their way through to Wembley and were 90 minutes away from being back in the Premier League. They were on the verge of becoming a somewhat consistent Premier League club, one that you would potentially associate with Norwich or a Fulham. They also had new owners too, a takeover led by Chinese brother and sister Dai Young and Dai Zhu Li. This was promised to be a new era at the Majeski Stadium. Playoff final was a 0-0 draw, and it led to penalties against Huddersfield Town. And if we all remember that game, then you may remember one certain phrase. And he takes that chance. Christopher Schindler scored the goal to send Huddersfield Town to the Premier League in what was a fairy tale story, but in the eyes of Reading, this was disaster behind the scenes. The difference between John Majeski and the new ownership under Dai Young was money. How do you spend money and how do you make it count? Under Majeski, under his 2 decades of ownership, they had ambition, however always prioritised safeguarding the football club no matter what. They had to be clever with what they spent and made sure that every player, every investment counted. And under Dai Young, it couldn't be any further apart. The one thing you can always say to them is that initially they did offer a good amount of financial support. However, of where they put the money was in ridiculous areas, with not a clear strategy of how to move the club forward. Twice in previous years on the balance sheets, their total revenue and pre-tax losses have all accounted to close to £100 million. This is not the Reading way. As what a former employee of Reading has said to The Athletic, it's cash in the wrong areas. Throw big wages at players who don't have the hunger to do well and don't even want to be there. The whole culture of the club is absolutely shot. How about we actually look through what's happened to them? Incredible amounts of spending saw 12 Reading players earning more than £1 million a year in the 1920 championship season. The same season, by the way, that they finished 14th. 2 other clubs, also owned by the Dai family in Belgium and China, hit financial trouble and ceased to exist. Sadly for a few now championship clubs, the golden ticket of being in the Premier League is too enticing, where they will throw everything at the wall to try to get to the promised land. And with this comes financial trouble. This has happened quite a few times. Derby County was quite well known for going all the way and sadly just couldn't make it over the line, and it cost them in the end, and now play in League One and was in serious financial trouble. Sheffield Wednesday can also be put in the same category of being so close to the Premier League in 15-16, and over a period of time it caught up to them in the end. Reading appears to be another one of them, and in 16-17 they came so close, losing in the playoff final and been going down ever since. By looking at the operating losses of the last decade from 2010-11 to 2019-20, when they lost the playoff final, operating losses increased by 3, even 4 times than their usual amount. They spent lavishly and didn't get the rewards for it, and this cost them with an EFL charge for breaching its profit and sustainability rules, a 6 points deduction. This came in the 2022-23 year and dragged them down towards the relegation zone, and due to this they went down, and without this 6 point deduction they would have stayed up. Going down all due to the failures of the board. And not only were they not spending wisely, but they were spending wisely so badly that they were actually getting worse. They finished back-to-back championship finishes in 20th place. In 17-18, spending £7 million for striker Sonny Aluko from Fulham, who scored 6 goals in 102 appearances over 4 years. Also, goalkeeper Vito Manone, Mudu Barrow, and midfielder Leandro Bacuna cost a combined sum of £5 million. And, including that, striker Sam Baldock cost £3 million from Brighton and scored 11 goals in 3 years. Now, this is by no means cheap, especially for a club in the championship, and you got to get returns on that, otherwise it will be biting you. But not only that, but also wages. Let's go and look at a person called George Puskas, joined from Inter Milan for about 7.5 million, becoming a club record transfer. Also, Lucas João also came through from Sheffield Wednesday for £5 million. These are not cheap, and the wages also would make your eyes water a little bit. For example, going back to the last 10 years, between 2010-11 and 2019-20, you can see a big boost to their wages to income ratio. As you can see by these new big signings, that it boosted a long way. That became unmanageable. And the vast majority of these players all left the club on a free, meaning that they were both burning through wages and transfer fees without any return. The only notable sale from Reading in the last couple of years is by a player that you must definitely have heard of called Vizeh, who joined Crystal Palace for £8 million. At the time, a 19-year-old that came through Reading's Category 1 academy. And Reading's academy was always quite well known to bringing in some quite top quality talent. Well, let's have a look at what's going on today at Reading. Well, let's have a look at League One. For some people who are only top 6 fans and don't really pay too much attention, yes, Reading are in League One. And not only are they in League One, but they are also in the relegation zone. Do keep in mind that they have got a 4-point deduction by the EFL. Let's go to the owner here and what he's really doing. By the way, you won't find him anywhere because he's somewhere in China. That Young was trying to sell the club for quite a few years. However, as time has gone on and as the situation gets worse, it doesn't look appealing to try to buy out the football club. Alongside that, his valuation of the club is incredibly high. He is looking for around 70 to 80 million pounds to sell the club, and that includes its assets as well. As said before, catering staff has not been paid, therefore they are not getting food cooked by any chefs for a time period, so their players had to eat by microwaved meals. And redundancies have been gone to a lot of staff within the club a week before Christmas. Heating bills not even paid, therefore the officers are cold and leading the workers to go and work in their courts. And when it comes to the club, well, it doesn't stop there. This means that a lot of the young talent will be looking to be gone in this window, such as the likes of under-20s defender Nelson Abbey, club captain Tom Holmes, Tyler Bindon and Charlie Savage, who will be allowed to leave if people pay the amount that they would like. A lot of EFL statements have been made with a lot of issues of HMRC. Also, by the way, parts of their staff team have also been cut loose too. And I do feel very bad for the likes of Ruben Sells, who had quite a tough time at Southampton and has now gone to Reading and somehow got himself in a somehow worse position, with his own staff team now just being cut off around him without any control of him whatsoever. Now, is there any hope for Reading? Well, there is some hope, however, it doesn't seem like that's moving fast anytime soon. Paul Richardson, who tried to buy Birmingham City in 2022, has been in contact. Also, Mike Ashley, which you'd like to know from Newcastle, has also held talks. However, they've not heard anything from Reading for about a year now. It seems like Dai Young does not know what's going on here. Shout out to the lads at Sell Before We Die, a protest group who has done some great work in bringing a community feel to Reading Football Club during a tough time period. Of course, when I see a situation like this, when I'm seeing a club go in the manner that they have, it makes me grateful, and I'm sure for many of you guys that if your clubs are particularly not doing that well or they're a bit stagnant right now, at least your club isn't falling apart in front of your very own eyes. And despite the hopes that they should be okay eventually, such as the likes of Derby, they ended up okay in the end. However, as we all know with Bury, it doesn't always work out that way. And when it's your club, when it's your community, it's different. If you're a Reading fan, that I hope that you guys get out of this mess, really. What I'm seeing here is a chairman that simply has lost any hope and is simply trying to cash out and get as much money as he possibly can. And it's terrifying, really. So I wish you guys well, and I'll see you guys next time.